do this shit. Oh, the massager is on the second level. And I slept earlier, so I'm wide awake. And it's late night. About to put on a little late night jazz noir. Huh. I can't sleep. So I'm gonna make some mother. Flipping lineups. Falcons, Redskins, $20, 20 lineups, $3,000 pool, $300 to first place. Take these tournaments down. Let's build up a bankroll. Let's get back to that fucking $1,000,000. Brought to you by the new Pharaoh's Lounge Kickstarter. Look at that shit. Going back up. Heading towards 25 G's. Keeping the lifestyle I'm accustomed to. Look at that big bad win. Had to split the money, which really pisses me off, especially when I had to split the money with MIT fucking spreadsheet prick optimizer fucks. Well, let's not here to talk about that. We're here to make some lineups. Let's do it. Let's do the system. Terry McLaurin, best card in the deck. Corey Patterson, Marcus Mariota, Taylor Heineke, Carson Wentz, Antonio Gibson. Patterson, McLaurin, Mariota, Heineke. Look at these top cards in the deck. The top cards in the deck. What to do about the top cards in the deck. What we're gonna do with your neck. Who was gonna walk out of here? All right. Obviously, Carson Wentz will not be joining us on this journey towards a big fat. I want to live in the Aston Martin building of Miami. I fell in love with the architecture. I never been one of those type of snobs, but I tell myself I live in a really cool building now, but it's incredibly young. So what if I lived in a building that wasn't so young, but filled with a bunch of older women that were just wild and kind of like the party? Maybe they was. Maybe they're independently wealthy. Maybe they're just damn good businesswomen. Perhaps that's where I can go in Miami. Or here and stay in Lauderdale. Do we skip over Drake London and all those? Because not Drake London. Johanna Dotson. Desmond Ritter. I kept waiting for that asshole to get in the game, but he wouldn't do it. Ba-da, ba-da, ba-da. Logan fucking Thomas. Has this guy never been not injured during one goddamn season? It's another guy should just come into the game on a fucking stretcher. Olamide Zacchaeus, the OZ, the Ozman cometh. Joey fucking Sly. Captain was my captain. Young Wei Koo. Falcons D. I mean, this is the Redskins. Redskins upsetting the entire seasonal balance by taking out the undefeated Philadelphia Eagles. Demir Bird. Hesse. I mean, this guy Hesse is supposed to be a big shot now that Kyle Pitts is on the DL. Or is it going to be Michael Pruitt? Or one of 12 other fucking tight ends are going to run in this goddamn game. Well, you cannot lock any of these fucking games down because there's always some shit. Brought to you by the new Pharaoh's Kickstarter. All right, let's do this right. We got a $12,000 deficit. We got all sorts of shit going on right here. Scary Terry McLaurin caught 4 passes for 55 yards on 7 targets against Houston on Sunday. McLaurin did well for his own part, especially considering the struggles of quarterback Taylor Heineke. But it's still somewhat disappointing for McLaurin's fantasy investors that he wasn't given more opportunity to capitalize against the Houston defense that couldn't consistently cover him. McLaurin usually holds the advantage against any cornerback that lines up against him, so he's a fine bounce back candidate, even if he seeks shadow coverage from standout Atlanta corner A.J. Terrell in Week 12. That sounds a little scary. Scary Terry. Cordell Patterson rushed 10 times for 52 yards and caught both of his targets for 7 yards during Sunday's win over the Bears. He also returned to kickoff for a 103-yard touchdown and lost the fumble. Holy shitballing in Wisconsin. Patterson garnered 2 more rushing attempts than Tyler Allgeier, but the latter was slightly more efficient than the former. The veteran Patterson lost the fumble in the second quarter, setting up a Bears touchdown, but he quickly made up for the blunder by taking a kickoff for a 103-yard score the next time he touched the ball. The Falcons' running game appears to be a committee moving forward, but given Atlanta's run-first mindset, both running backs should be on fantasy radars as potential flex options. Marcus Mariota completed 13 of 20 passes for 131 yards and a touchdown during Sunday's win over the Bears. He also rushed 13 times for 25 yards and an additional score. Mariota threw a 2-yard touchdown to Drake London on the Falcons' first drive of the game and gave Atlanta a 24-17 lead at the end of the third quarter with a 10-yard touchdown run. The quarterback didn't produce many yards, but he made the plays when he needed to, avoided turnovers, and found the end zone twice in the high-scoring win. Mariota continues to be a solid streaming option, but his overall production remains limited due to Atlanta's meager passing attack. Ugh. Heineke completed 15 of 27 passes for 191 yards against Houston on Sunday. Washington built a safe lead early in this game. Perhaps the resulting lack of urgency had something to do with Heineke's middling production. Heineke took 6 quarterback hits from an unusually lackluster Texans pass rush, but will aim for better performance against another team with trouble pressuring the quarterback in the Falcons in Week 12. Carson Wentz was designated to return from injured reserve Wednesday, but the Commanders will stick with Taylor Heineke and Sam Howell as their top 2 quarterbacks for at least one more week. Wentz will return to practice Wednesday, perhaps with the goal of coming back for Week 13, or else after the Week 14 bye. The Commanders reportedly now view Taylor Heineke as their new starter, leaving Wentz in a backup role unless his teammates' performance leads to a benching. What do we got here? Antonio Gibson ran 72 yards on 18 carries and caught 3 passes for 31 yards on 3 targets against Houston on Sunday. Brian Robinson saw 15 carries for 57 yards himself, as both Washington backs saw big workloads following a pick 6 by Washington corner Kendall Fuller on Houston's opening drive. It's not clear whether Gibson saw more carries than Robinson in acknowledgement of their respective levels of effectiveness, an area where Gibson would have the recent advantage, or if it was more random outcome on the game's flow. The Washington run blocking has been poor all year, but there should be opportunities for the backfield to keep producing against Atlanta in Week 12. Well, obviously we cut Wentz. So let's see what's going on with this Taylor Allgeier. They said him and Cordell Beasts, right? Tyler Allgeier rushed 8 times for 55 yards and secured his only target for 9 yards during Sunday's win over the Bears. Allgeier saw only 9 touches but was efficient in his limited work. Cordell Peterson had only 2 more rushing attempts than the rookie, but Marcus Mariota dominated the groundwork, rushing 13 times for 25 yards and a score. As expected, Allgeier's role has diminished with Patterson's return from IR, but the former remains solidly involved in the offense and should continue to be on fantasy radars. Not enough to get me to cut you. I mean, at you. Heineke, he's struggling. Cut his ass. All right. We can put Dotson in and a punt, so let's see if it's worth it. Jahan Dotson caught 1 of 2 targets at 13 yards and rushed once for 3 yards in Sunday's win over the Texans. In Dotson's second game back from a 5-game absence due to a hamstring injury, he was held in check by Houston's secondary without their 3rd overall draft pick in Darrell Stingley. After a hot start to begin his NFL career, including 4 scores in his first 4 games, The 22-year-old has managed just to combine 2 receptions with 27 yards over Washington's last 2 contests with Taylor Heineke under center. However, Dotson has a prime opportunity to turn things around in Week 12 against a vulnerable Falcons secondary. Kid's got the numbers. He's a possibility. You have to take a punt, but let's also take a look at the kicker theory. Let's take a look at Sly and Youngway. Joey Sly made all 3 of his field goal attempts in both PAT tries in Sunday's win over Houston. Washington dominated a Texans team that fell to 1-8-1, which led to another busy outing for Sly, who has converted all 7 of his field goal attempts in the past 2 games. His makes against Houston came from 25, 24, 44. Sly's got a lot of double-digit games there, and a few duds. Youngway Koo made both of his field goal attempts and all 3 of his point-after tries during Sunday's win over the Bears. Koo tied the game at 17 with a 40-yard field goal as time expired in his first half and gave Atlanta a 27-24 lead with a 53-yard to boot, with under 2 minutes left to go in regulation. It was certainly a bounce-back performance for the 28-year-old after he missed his first 2 extra-point tries of the season during last Thursday's loss to the Panthers. Koo is 18 for 22 on field goal tries this season, but all 4 of his misses have come from beyond 40 yards, including 3 misfires from at least 50 yards. Now let's go ballsy and go for fucking. But we got McLaurin in this. You want to do McLaurin and Dotson? I don't know about that. I'm not sure about. I'm not big on doubling up receivers. Can we get Robinson or no? We can't get Robinson. Let's see what's going on with Robinson. Brian Robinson ran for 57 yards on 15 carries against Houston on Sunday. It's disappointing that Robinson couldn't get more going on the ground against Houston's weak run defense, and somewhat concerning that seeming backup Antonio Gibson saw 18 carries to Robinson 15, and 3 targets to Robinson none. Gibson appears to be the team's preferred passing down target between the two, so Robinson would ideally hold the defensive lead over Gibson as the team's preferred runner. The Washington backfield will continue to be a bit perplexing for fantasy managers going into a favorable matchup against the Falcons in Week 12. That ain't promising. Nothing on good old Sam Howell. So if you grab Sly here, you got Hess, and we got the bottom rungs. Let's do it. All the way up to Hess. Have ourselves a drink first. A helping of ale. Yeah. Felipe Franks. Question will play Sunday against the Commanders. Franks has missed both of Atlanta's last 2 games as a result of a calf issue. But following limited sessions in each practice this week, the 24-year-old has a shot to return this weekend versus Washington. With fellow tight ends Kyle Pitts and John Fitzpatrick both currently on injured reserve, Franks can see an uptick in usage alongside Parker Hesse, Michael Pruitt, and Anthony Ferkser. That's way too many fucking shit tight ends. Curtis Hodges, Jared Bernhardt, Eli Wolf, Johnny Fitzpatrick, Rayshwan Henry, Alex Armand, Carrick McGowan, old news, Halloween. Jarrett Patterson reverted back to the Commanders' practice squad. Patterson made his first NFL appearance in 2022 in Week 10 against the Eagles, but he ultimately played just 4 special team snaps in the contest. The 22-year-old will now transition back to Washington's practice squad as an emergency running back depth option, though he could receive another promotion to the 53-man roster if either J.D. McKissick or Jonathan Williams is unable to gain clearance in time for Sunday's game in Houston. John Rain. Signed to the practice squad. Maybe we should just stop reading these fucking practice squad things. Rain was previously waived from Atlanta's IR with an injury settlement in early September, and he's now gone unsigned since. While the nature of his injury was never disclosed, the 24-year-old tight end appears to be healthy again after linking back up with the Falcons practice squad. The Northwestern product should have a chance to make his NFL debut as a potential game day elevation, as starting tight end Kyle Pitts also landed on injured reserve Monday. Pitts is done, right? Franco Darby. The Falcons signed Darby to their active roster off the practice squad Wednesday. Darby was a sixth-round pick by Atlanta in the 2021 draft, but he's failed to make any waves in the NFL thus far. The wideout caught one pass on 4 targets over 10 contests in 2021 and is yet to see a target while playing just 10 offensive snaps for Atlanta so far this year. The Falcons have a mostly healthy wide receiver core, so Darby should be expected to play a major role on offense moving forward. Well, then fuck his mother. Tucker Fish, man, we got some great names here. Well, it's Fisk, but I think it'd be a lot cooler if his name was Tucker Fish. Your fucking choice, pal. Want to be a fucking superstar? Live large, the big house, 5 cars, the rent charged. Mark and Michelle. All these gentlemen just standing along the sidelines, waiting for their chance to get in the game. Make some waves. Make some noise. B.J. Baylor. Good old Damian Williams. Remember that guy was on the Super Bowl fucking Chiefs? The mighty fall, my friend, the mighty fall. Look, they're fucking speaking of shit players. Edwards was waived by the Falcons on Thursday. Look at that. Edwards was able to make his mark with the Falcons, finding himself as a healthy and active multiple times this season. His time in Atlanta will end with Edwards having brought in 3 of 5 targets for 15 yards across 7 games. They'll now work to find new opportunities elsewhere. Doosh, 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 doosh. All right. Jonathan Williams, officially active for Sunday's game against the Texans. Williams missed 4 of the past 5 games with a knee issue, but is good to go for Sunday's contest. The 28-year-old has only 6 carries for 54 yards in 6 games this year and is unlikely to see much offensive action with Houston, with Brian Robinson and Antonio Gibson entering the game in good health. All right. Dax Milne has been ruled out for Sunday's game against the Falcons. Hey, you suck. Milne is slated to miss the first contest of the 2023 campaign as a result of a foot injury. Though the 23-year-old's offensive opportunities have been limited this season, he's seen work as a returner on both kickoffs and punts across Washington's first 11 weeks. In his absence, Antonio Gibson is likely the most man-up to handle kick returns, while Jahan Dotson is expected to operate as the team's primary punt returner at Sunday's matchup versus Atlanta. Isn't that interesting? Isn't that very interesting? Old news, Avery Williams. No more old news. Old news, Diami Brown. J.D. McKissick was placed on injured reserve Saturday. Rappaport slated McKissick would not play the rest of the season, as the veteran's neck injury will require a multi-month rehab process. McKissick will end his year with just 22 receptions and 173 pass receiving yards, both figures representing career lows when he's played at least 6 games. The 1-2 tandem of Brian Robinson and Antonio Gibson has mitigated the loss in terms of the Commanders' offense, but it leaves the backfield depth in a vulnerable state. Cole Turner. Old news. Caleb Huntley. Questionable for Sunday's game. If Huntley can't play after 3 straight limited practices, Avery Williams would work as the number 3 back behind Cordell Patterson and Tyler Allegia. Though it isn't a role that is likely to come with more than a handful of touches even if Huntley is active. The Falcons and Commanders are scheduled for an early kickoff Sunday at 1, which the inactive list due at 11:30. This guy slipped in and out of a few games, even 9 points in a game. Amani Rogers, injured reserve. He was already ruled out for Sunday's game against the Texans due to knee and ankle injuries, but now he'll be forced to miss at least the next 4 contests. In his absence, John Bates and Cole Turner will operate as the primary backups to Logan fucking always injured fucking Thomas. Kyle Pitts. Coach Archer Smith said Wednesday that Pitts will require surgery to address his right knee injury. Yeah, you suck this year anyway. Smith said that a recoverable timetable for Pitts, who was placed on injured reserve Monday, will not be known until after the surgery is completed. Falcons haven't offered details on the extent of Pitts' injury, but multiple reports have suggested the 2021 first-round pick is dealing with a grade 2 MCL sprain. Pitts will need to miss a minimum of 4 games due to his replacement on the IR. But pending an update from Atlanta after his procedure, it remains to be seen whether or not the tight end will be able to return this season. That sucks. Sucks. Old news, John Bates. No more old fucking news. Old news, Cam Sims. Anthony Firkser may be among the players asked to have a large role in the absence of Kyle Pitts. Firkser appeared in the team's first 5 games, totaling 3 receptions on 4 targets for 39 yards. However, he hasn't seen the field since, logging in healthy scratches each week. With Pitts on IR, Atlanta will take a committee approach to replacing the talented pass catcher, which may include Firkser getting back in the mix. The fifth-year tight end recorded over 200 receiving yards in each of the first 4 NFL campaigns with Tennessee and finished with 73 receptions on 96 targets, 678 yards, 3 scores across 2020 and 2021 campaigns. If he's able to garner a similar role with Pitts sidelined, he could emerge as a viable streaming option in deeper leagues. However, he's currently behind Parker Hesse and Michael Pruitt on the depth chart. Interesting. How incredibly interesting. Kadarrell Hodge gathered his only target for 13 yards during Sunday's victory over Chicago. Hodge secured a 13-yard reception for a first down on the Falcons' first drive of the game, which ultimately ended in a Drake London touchdown. However, the fifth-year wideout wasn't targeted again the rest of the way, as Marcus Mariota only attempted 20 passes. Over his last 3 appearances, Hodges caught 4 of 5 targets for 69 yards and a score, but he's played just 29 offensive snaps during that stretch. Still, coming off an 11-point drop, 8-1 early that year, and even a 7, Kadarrell Hodge is in play. Michael Pruitt will be among the group of players who are asked to step up in the absence of Kyle Pitts. Pruitt saw an increased role after Pitts went down in Week 11 and finished with a season-high 30 offensive snaps, securing his lone target for 17 yards. With Pitts on IR, Atlanta will use a committee approach to replace the talented pass catcher. Parker Hesse, who is expected to operate as the number 1 tight end in Pitts' absence, is mostly known as a blocker. So Pruitt, who's caught 8 touchdowns over the past 5 seasons, could step up as the primary pass-catching tight end. However, neither player projects to have as large of an impact in the passing game as Pitts did. You fucking all suck. And finally, Parker Hesse. Hesse will be among the group of players who has to step up in the absence of Kyle fucking Pitts. Hesse has played over 60% of the team's offensive snaps 8 times this season, second only to Pitts amongst the Atlanta tight ends. However, the former has caught just 5 of 6 targets for 50 yards across 11 appearances. Hesse figures to operate as the Falcons' number 1 tight end in Pitts' absence, but he's unlikely to see a major change in statistical output as he mostly operates as a blocker when on the field. I think Hodge is the way to go here. Just as a fucking around. Just because I'm fucking around. If you took Dotson, but you doubled up there with McLaurin, if that works. Bates, Turner, you don't even get that. I don't like it. Going Sly. Well, let me see the Commanders' defense here. Coming off a fucking 19-point blast to Houston and a 15-point lead. This fucking team is rolling. And it is Atlanta. So you know what? I think we take the fucking Commanders D. Let's just get a point count. I mean, they're hot. The defense is hot. Sacks. 5 fucking sacks on Houston last week. A defensive touchdown 2 weeks in a row. Yep. They're surging. I mean, 34 points, 39, 46, 49, 52, 62, 67, 70, 75, 77, 81 fucking points the Commanders' defense has scored. Why was I looking anywhere else? And we'll grab Ferkser. They want to get his ass involved in the game. He's the only one that had an interesting tight end report. The other two were kind of fucking boring. There we go. Don't be cruel. All right, we got Patterson in here. We'll lose Heineke. And you can take Dotson over McLaurin. McLaurin's seemingly the beast. They say we stay fucking hot with that Commander's D. With 1,000 left, get Daryl Hodge. Boom. Again, we lose Carson Wentz. We still got some cash we got to make up here. We take out Heineke. We toss in the Commander's D. $1,000 left for Daryl Hodge. So I'm almost straying away from the kickers a little bit. Not sure why. I'm just having a little fun here. Gonna get a little crazy. Get some bright red. Now we can't drop Heineke because he's the captain spot. But we can drop McLaurin in favor of Jahan Dotson. Now you take the 16 left over, and I'm probably going to stay with Hodge over Pruitt. Well, you got Patterson, Mariota, Gibson. We got Heineke, Dotson. You can go Ferkser here, but I'm liking Hodge. Hodge to get involved again. All right, we got Carson Wentz on the IR. Of course, going to pull his ass out. Let's move that all the way down here. Oh, you fuck. What we got here? That's Michael Pruitt. So who would be the captain? Here would be Daryl Hodge. If. Oops, sorry, wrong one. Wrong one. All right. Let's lose Wentz. Let's lose Heineke. Let's get the Commander's D in there. 2 G's left over. I'm sticking with Hodge. Looking for Daryl Hodge and the Commander's D to be my fucking champion cards. And win me this fucking pot. Robinson, I'm willing to stay with the captain spot there. Pulling Wentz. Pulling Heineke. Again, you go Commander's D. Now you got 26 left. Anything better? Still Parker Hesse. So I'll still toss Daryl Hodge in there. Essentially running the core lineup, switching out the captains, trying to protect ourselves against any player that pops the fuck off. Curtis Samuel. 1 of 2 targets for 10 yards and rushed twice for 18 yards and 1 touchdown in Sunday's win over the Texans. Samuel's fantasy day was salvaged by a 10-yard rushing score that came early in the second quarter of Sunday's victory in Houston. Otherwise, the versatile 26-year-old has been limited to a combined 14 targets across Washington's last 4 contests. Though he somewhat made up for the lack of passing game, looks with 9 carries in that same stretch. Samuel also played a season-low 40 offensive snaps Sunday, but the Week 12 matchup versus the Falcons contains upside for all Commanders' offensive players. Lose Heineke. Where's my Commander's D? 29 now. Anything better? No, we're still stuck with Hesse there. Still leaving cash on the table. Drake London. Reeled in 1 of 3 targets for 2 yards and 1 touchdown during Sunday's win over the Bears. London gave the Falcons an early 7-0 lead with a 2-yard score to finish the first drive of the game. However, The rookie wideout saw only 2 targets the rest of the way and failed to secure another catch, marking his second game with 1 or fewer receptions. Regardless, London now has scored a touchdown in back-to-back weeks and has 4 scores across 11 appearances, though he's failed to top 50 yards in 8 straight games after reaching that plateau in each of his first 3 contests. Hmm. All right, she gets in the end zone. Goose Heineke. Commanders D. Is there anything? All right, we finally get somebody else to play with here. Damiere Byrd gathered in both of his 2 targets with 29 yards during Sunday's win versus Chicago. Byrd finished second on the team in receiving yards behind Kyle Pitts and has totaled 9 receptions on 14 targets of 229 yards and 2 scores over his last 5 games. The veteran wideout has emerged as a quality option for Marcus Mariota during the middle of the season, but his inconsistent production makes him a risky fantasy play moving forward. Let's take the risk. We're taking the risk. We like Byrd. And we're bookending receivers there, but I'm willing to take the risk. Say Mariota throws the ball. I hear you're worked up here because all you're doing is basically just dropping Wentz, trading Wentz for Ferkser. Keeping the core. Commanders D, abso-fucking-lutely. Just cut out Wentz. Leaving you 15 for Kadero Hodge. Bang. Look at that shit. I'd keep him up there as a captain. You could do that. I feel like I got to run Hesse once. He's got to be my outlier here. Just running him once, just in case he gets in the end zone. You got to be protected. Have his ass at least once. Logan Thomas. Listed as questionable for Sunday's game against Atlanta, is dealing with an illness in addition to a rib injury. This guy is never healthy. Logan Thomas is a limited practice participant Wednesday and Thursday before sitting out Friday. His absence Friday was due to the ailment and not a setback with a rib injury, with head coach Ron Rivera saying after practice that he expects Thomas to play Sunday against the Falcons. If not, the Commanders will be left with John Bates and Cole Turner as their top tight ends ahead of the 1 p.m. kickoff. All right, keep Logan there. I'm going to cut Wentz for Hodge. Oz, Olamide Zaccheaus. Hauled in 1 of 2 targets and 9 yards during Sunday's victory versus Chicago. He also rushed once for 13 yards. Marcus Mariota completed 13 passes to 9 different receivers, which limited the fantasy potential for all of Atlanta's pass catchers. Zaccheaus failed to record multiple receptions for just the second time all season, totaling 25 catches on 31 yards for 274 yards and 2 scores across 11 appearances. The undrafted wideout should be on fantasy radars in deeper leagues, but his lack of prolific production likely keeps him irrelevant in most standard leagues. Yeep. Who's Wentz? What do we got? 3 grand. Stick with Hodge. You like Hodge. All right. Joey Sly. We read all about Mr. Sly. We cut Wentz. What do we got? Damiere Byrd. Byrd is the word. Young Wei Koo. Oh, do we not get? Oh, we just keep missing out on Sly. We can't get that double kicker in there. We get the Bird. I like the Bird. Bird is the word. Falcons D. That could be interesting. Dump out of Wentz. You get 42 coming back here. What do we get for 42? We get Young Wei Koo, which I like, which I like, which I like. Bird stays a captain. We lose Wentz. What do we get? We get back up without looking. Yeah. I would actually come up the back with a leg Gia as opposed to Young Wei Koo. Bash him with both running backs. Hesse, do we like him? I mean, he's the number one tight end, apparently on paper, so it's worth the $1 to lose to go after this idea. Let's put Dotson in. I like Dotson there. All right. Miko Pruitt, though? No, I just can't see Miko fucking Pruitt in there. Nah, this will be a slaughter stack. Drake London. We'll run London, Bird, and Koo. Skip the tight end. Giving you 10-7-0 for Terry McLaurin. Perfect. Atlanta slaughter stack. So we're going to flip it over here. Daryl Hodge is not a captain. Patterson. Gibson. Terry and Dotson. We'll run the Commanders D. Oh, we can't get the Commanders D. Because we already took Patterson. That's fine. That's where I'll actually run Bates. Hodge, Ferkser, Bates. Bates. No, Hodge. Fuck Bates. He's terrible. Boom. Yep. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe we have 20 lineups there. 20 bold lineups. Ladies and gentlemen, may fate and faith decide your fortune if you should win. Blow your money on the new Pharaoh's Lounge Kickstarter. It's sweet. It's wonderful. It's beautiful. It's business. Do what you got to do. Peace, love, war. All of the crazy shit in between.